You ever get that feeling, like you're kind of stuck, just going through the motions, living out the same script day after day?
Oh yeah, for sure. That feeling of being on autopilot.
Right. But what if I told you it doesn't have to be that way? Like, what if you actually have the power to totally rewrite your story, change who you are at the deepest level,
Hmm.
and change the life you're living because of it? Pretty mind-blowing stuff, huh?
Totally. And that's exactly what we're diving into today. We've been going deep into some really thought-provoking stuff, like some seriously profound material. And our goal in this deep dive is to break down the science of how all this transformation stuff actually works.
Yeah, we're talking about how your thoughts, feelings, even your core personality, it's all connected to the reality you experience every single day.
And the really cool part is that once you understand that connection, you can actually start to use it.
Yeah, like intentionally shift that inner world to create real changes in your outer world. So let's get into it. One of the big takeaways from this material is this powerful link between your personality and your reality.
Right. Personality. Think about that for a second. Like how you think, how you act, how you feel. It's basically the blueprint for your life.
It's like your personality, the way you've been up until now, it's created the life you're living right now.
Exactly. You are where you are because of who you've been.
Makes you think, doesn't it?
It really does. And it leads to this kind of mind-blowing idea. If you want a different reality, if you want different experiences, different circumstances, you've got to become a different person.
Change your personality.
Yeah.
Easier said than done, right?
Yeah.
We all have those deep-rooted habits and patterns.
Oh, absolutely. And one of the things that keeps us stuck, it's how our minds keep replaying old memories.
We dwell on the past.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not just the event itself, it's the emotions that come with it. So you're thinking about that problem from last week, and boom, you're feeling that same anger, that same frustration all over again.
You're stuck in yesterday's emotions.
Literally. Your brain, your body, they're both right back there in the past. And this is where it gets really interesting. The material we've been looking at, it suggests that your body can actually get addicted to those negative emotions.
Addicted to feeling bad.
It sounds crazy, but yeah. Those stress hormones, like cortisol, adrenaline, they create a certain feeling in your body. And even though it's unpleasant, it becomes familiar. It becomes your comfort zone.
Your body craves that familiar chemical cocktail.
Exactly. And that's how some people, without even realizing it, they keep recreating negative situations just to get that hit.
Just to feel that familiar rush of stress hormones.
It's subconscious. They're not doing it on purpose, but their body is seeking out those feelings. So addiction, we're not just talking about drugs or alcohol here. It's anything you feel compelled to do, even when you know it's not good for you.
So you can be addicted to a substance, but you can also be addicted to an emotion.
To a feeling, to a pattern of thinking. And all that stress, it takes a real toll on your body. It disrupts your body's natural state of balance.
Which is called?
Homeostasis. Like, think of it as your internal thermostat.
Okay, got it. Homeostasis, internal thermostat.
Stress messes with your thermostat, throws everything off, and if it goes on for too long, that's when you start to see those health problems.
Now, this part blew my mind. The material says that 95% of who we are, it's just automatic.
95%.
Yeah, like 95% of our thoughts, actions, and feelings. It's all driven by these unconscious programs running in the background.
So we're basically on autopilot most of the time.
That's right, which means we're not really in control as much as we think we are. Only a tiny fraction of our day is driven by conscious choice.
So if you want to really create lasting change, you've got to go deeper. You've got to reprogram those underlying patterns. But how do you even start to do that?
Well, that's the exciting part. We actually have more power to change than we realize. Right. We are not just stuck with the brains we were born with.
Right. And the way we do that, it's actually pretty simple. We learn new information, we understand it, and then we apply it in our lives. And that process of learning and applying, that's what creates new neural pathways in the brain.
It's like building new mental highways.
Exactly. New habits, new ways of thinking and feeling. And the really cool part is that this doesn't just change your mind, it changes your body too.
So there's a direct link between your personality and your biology.
100%. Like, if you can change your personality, your biology will change too. It might even happen in just a week.
In a week? Seriously?
Yeah, they've actually seen this in studies of people with dissociative identity disorder.
Yeah.
You know, where someone has multiple personalities.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
So depending on which personality is dominant at the time, their biology actually changes. Like, they might be allergic to something as one personality and then totally fine as another.
That is wild.
It is. They've even seen differences in handedness and things like diabetes.
Like one personality is diabetic and the other isn't?
Yeah, it's pretty mind-blowing. It shows you just how fluid our personalities are and how interconnected our mind and body really are.
Okay, so if we can change our personality and that changes our biology, does that mean we can actually heal ourselves by becoming a different person?
That's the implication. Like, if you can shift your personality to one that's healthier, more resilient, more balanced, your body might actually follow suit.
Yeah.
You could potentially heal chronic conditions by becoming a new you.
It's like the ultimate makeover, inside and out.
Exactly. Now, earlier we were talking about this idea of being addicted to emotions, and I'm still wrapping my head around that. How does that happen? Like, how do we get hooked on feeling bad without even knowing it?
Right, how does that work?
Well, the material suggests it's all about familiarity. We get used to a certain emotional state, it becomes our comfort zone, even if it's a negative state.
So we get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
In a way, yeah, it's like we become addicted to the drama, the ups and downs.
But the material also talks about how big life events, crises, can sometimes shake us out of those patterns. Like, how does that work?
It's like a wake-up call. Something happens that's so big, so unexpected, that it forces us to question everything. Our old ways of thinking, our old ways of feeling, they just don't work anymore.
We're forced to see things from a new perspective.
Exactly. And that can trigger what's called metacognition.
Meta what?
Metacognition. It's basically thinking about your own thinking, becoming aware of your own mental processes. It's like taking a step back and observing yourself from the outside.
So we become conscious of our unconscious patterns.
Exactly. And that's a huge step towards change. But here's the thing. The material also points out that these intense emotional experiences, they create really strong memories.
And those memories can keep us stuck.
Yeah, because when you experience something intense, your brain takes a snapshot. It encodes that experience in your memory, along with all the emotions that came with it. And then when you replay that memory, you're basically re-experiencing the whole thing. The emotions, the physical sensations, the whole 9 yards.
You're constantly reliving the past.
Yeah, and that keeps those neural pathways firing. It keeps those emotional patterns alive. It's like rehearsing a negative script over and over again. And it's not just what's going on in your head. Your environment plays a big role too.
You mean like the people we surround ourselves with?
Yeah.
The places we go?
All of that. Our environment, it's full of triggers, things that remind us of who we've been. And those triggers, they activate those old neural networks, those old patterns of thinking and feeling. So it's like your environment is conspiring to keep you stuck.
So we're fighting a battle on two fronts. Internally with our own thoughts and memories,
Yeah.
and externally with our environment.
And when you try to change, when you try to break free from those old patterns, it really can feel like a war.
The material even calls it a war.
Yeah, because your body is going to fight back. It's used to those old ways of feeling. It craves those stress hormones.
It wants that familiar chemical hit.
And when you deny it that, it's going to send all kinds of signals to your brain, trying to get you to go back to your old ways. So how do you win this war? The material says it all starts with awareness.
Becoming aware of those patterns.
Yeah, paying attention to your thoughts, your feelings, your reactions, catching yourself when you start to slip back into those old habits. And meditation, it's a powerful tool for developing that awareness.
Because it trains you to observe your own mind.
Exactly. And the material says it's okay if your mind wanders during meditation. Actually, it's an opportunity to become more aware. Every time you catch your mind drifting, you're strengthening that awareness muscle.
And what about those uncomfortable emotions that come up? The material talks about the importance of just sitting with those feelings.
That can be really challenging. Our natural instinct is to push those feelings away, to distract ourselves.
Yeah, no, I do that all the time.
But when you resist that urge, when you just sit with those feelings, you're sending a powerful message to your body. You're saying, hey, I'm in control here. I'm not going to let you run the show.
You're breaking the addiction.
And when you do that, when you stop feeding those negative emotional patterns, something amazing happens.
Yeah.
Material talks about a tremendous liberation of energy. It's like all that energy that was trapped in those old patterns, it gets freed up.
Where does it go?
It becomes available for new things, for creativity, for inspiration, for healing. It's like you open up a whole new wellspring of potential within yourself.
And this connects beautifully with the next big idea. Shifting from cause and effect to creating from wholeness.
Cause and effect, that's how most of us live. Something happens, and then we feel a certain way. We wait for the external world to change before we allow ourselves to feel good.
Like, I get a promotion, then I feel successful. I find a partner, then I feel loved.
Exactly. Our internal state is dependent on external circumstances.
But creating from wholeness, it flips that whole script.
It does. It says, hey, I don't have to wait for something outside of me to change. I can choose how I want to feel right now. So you cultivate that feeling of love, of abundance, of joy, whatever it is, even before it manifests in your external reality.
So you're basically embodying the feeling of your future in the present moment.
And when you do that, something really interesting happens.
What is it?
You stop looking for it externally because you're already feeling it internally.
You're no longer coming from a place of lack.
Exactly. And that changes your energetic vibration. It changes the signal you're sending out to the world. And that's when you start to see those synchronicities.
Those meaningful coincidences.
Yeah, it's like the universe starts to conspire to help you create the reality you're already feeling within yourself.
That's so cool. Now, the material also talks about this idea of a field, like a field of energy and information that exists beyond our normal perception.
Yeah, it's a bit out there, but it's basically saying there's this underlying reality that we don't normally see, and that this field is where all possibilities exist.
It's like the source code of reality.
Yeah, and the idea is that we can tap into this field, we can influence it with our consciousness.
But how do we even access it? We can't see it, we can't touch it.
It takes a shift in our attention. We have to move away from our normal focus on the physical world, the material world.
So less focus on things, more focus on energy.
Exactly. It's about tuning into that subtle realm of pure potential.
It reminds me of that phrase, you are the placebo.
It's the same idea. Our thoughts, our beliefs, they have a real impact on our reality. We're not just passive observers. We are active creators. Now, let's talk about brain waves.
Okay, brain waves.
Because the material goes into how different brainwave states, like the patterns of electrical activity in your brain, they're connected to different states of consciousness.
Okay, so we've all heard of beta waves, right? Like that's when we're awake, alert, focused on the outside world.
Yeah, beta is your everyday waking state. But it actually gets broken down further into mid-range beta and high beta.
So what's the difference?
Mid-range beta is like that focused attention you get when you're working on something, but you're still relatively calm. High beta, that's when you're stressed, anxious, hyper-focused on your body and your surroundings, like fight or flight mode.
And what happens to our brains when we're stressed out? The material mentioned something about incoherence.
Yeah, stress can actually throw your brain waves out of whack. It creates this chaotic electrical activity, like the different parts of your brain aren't communicating properly. And that's actually very energy intensive. It drains your mental resources.
It's like your brain is running on fumes.
Exactly. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, we have the slower brainwave states.
Like alpha, theta, and gamma.
Right. Alpha, that's associated with relaxation, that kind of daydreamy state. Theta, that's even slower. It's like when you're in that hypnagogic state right before you fall asleep. And then gamma, that's the really high frequency stuff.
And the material says gamma is connected to superconsciousness and makes really profound peak experiences.
It's like a state of heightened awareness where everything is connected, everything makes sense. So how do we get into these slower brainwave states? The material talks about shifting our attention.
Away from the outside world.
Yeah, quieting the mind, turning your focus inward. And one way to do that is to become aware of space.
Space, like the empty space around us.
Yeah, like really become aware of the emptiness, the nothingness. And that can help to synchronize your brainwaves, bringing them into a more coherent state.
So by focusing on nothing, we actually create more order in our brain.
It sounds paradoxical, but it's true. And as you get into those slower brainwave states like alpha and theta, you can start to access the subconscious mind.
That's the part of our mind that's running all those automatic programs.
Right. And when you're in theta, that critical analytical part of your mind, it kind of steps back. It's like the gatekeeper takes a break.
So you can slip past the bouncer.
Exactly. And that gives you access to those deep-seated beliefs and patterns that are driving your behavior. And it's in theta that you can start to reprogram those patterns, like through affirmations, visualizations, things like that.
It's like rewriting the software of your mind.
And the material also mentions that relaxing into your heart space while you're in theta, that can be really powerful for healing emotional trauma.
It's like giving your heart a chance to process those old wounds. Now, gamma brainwaves, they sound pretty intense. The material even talks about them leading to biological upgrades. What's that about?
It's a bit of a mystery, but it seems like when your brain is in that high gamma state, it's able to access information from that unified field we were talking about earlier. It's like you're tapping into a higher level of intelligence, a higher level of energy.
And that can have a healing effect on the body.
There's evidence to suggest that it can. There have been cases of spontaneous remissions from all sorts of things: eczema, Parkinson's, even cancer. And some researchers believe that gamma brainwaves might play a role in that.
Wow. The material also talks about how information from gamma states has been shown to inhibit viruses and cancer cells in the lab.
Pretty wild stuff, right? And then we have delta brainwaves, which most people associate with deep sleep.
Yeah, delta's like that deep, dreamless sleep.
But the material suggests that advanced meditators, they can actually access a state of deep awareness while they're in delta. And what's really interesting is that they often exhibit high levels of gamma activity at the same time.
So they're deeply asleep and super aware at the same time.
That's the idea. And it's in these states that people report having those profound mystical experiences, that sense of oneness, that feeling of unconditional love, that dissolution of the ego.
And the material suggests that the pineal gland might be involved in all this.
Yeah, the pineal gland, it's this tiny little gland in the brain that produces melatonin, which regulates your sleep cycles. But some researchers believe it might also produce other, more mysterious substances.
Like what?
Things like DMT, which is a powerful psychedelic. And they believe these substances might be released during these altered states of consciousness.
So the pineal gland might be our gateway to these higher realms of experience.
Maybe. It's still a lot of speculation, but it's fascinating to think about. And it's not just about our individual experiences. There's also this whole idea of collective consciousness.
The idea that we're all connected, that our thoughts and feelings can actually influence each other.
Exactly. And the material mentions some pretty compelling evidence for this, like those experiments with random number generators.
What are those?
It's basically a machine that generates random numbers. And they found that when a group of people focus their attention on the machine, it can actually influence the outcome.
Like they can make it produce more ones or more zeros.
Yeah, it's like their collective intention is influencing the randomness of the machine.
It's like they're bending reality with their minds.
It's pretty trippy. And there's also that experiment with the baby chicks and the robot.
The baby chicks and the robot. What was that?
So they programmed a robot to move randomly around a pen, and then they put a bunch of baby chicks in the pen. And the chicks, they're naturally drawn to their mother.
Right.
So they imprinted on the robot as their mother.
Okay, I'm following.
And what they found was that the chick's collective intention seemed to influence the robot's movements. Like, it was more likely to move towards the chicks than away from them.
Like the chicks were psychically controlling the robot.
In a way, yeah. It's like their collective focus, their collective intention created this energetic field that influenced the robot's behavior.
So if we can influence a robot with our minds, what else can we do?
That's the big question. And the material suggests that our collective coherence, the degree to which our brains and hearts are in sync, that's what determines the strength of our signal.
Like the stronger a signal, the more we can influence reality.
Exactly. And that's why group meditation, things like that, can be so powerful. Because when we come together with a shared intention, it amplifies our signal.
The material talks about coherence healing events, where groups of people focus their intention on healing someone who's sick.
And they've seen some pretty remarkable results. People going into remission from cancer, recovering from all sorts of ailments. And there's also been research on remote healing.
Where the healer is not even physically present.
Right. And they've seen positive effects on people with PTSD, even children with autism. It really highlights the interconnectedness of all things. But as powerful as collective consciousness is, the material emphasizes that personal transformation, it's an inside job.
It's about taking responsibility for our own growth and evolution.
Exactly. And it's an ongoing process. It's not a one-time fix.
It's about continuously expanding our awareness, challenging our limitations, becoming more of who we truly are.
And it all starts with a decision to change, a decision to evolve.
It's not enough to just want to feel better. You have to want to be different.
And once you make that decision, it's about paying attention to your thoughts, your feelings, your behaviors. It's about cultivating self-awareness.
And self-regulation. Learning to manage your emotions, your reactions.
Exactly. And the material talks about the power of mental rehearsal, like visualizing yourself, behaving in the way you want to behave, feeling the way you want to feel.
So you're basically priming your brain for success.
Yeah, you're creating new neural pathways, new habits. You're becoming the person you want to be. And all of this, it leads to a bigger vision, the vision of an emergent consciousness.
The idea that as more and more individuals wake up, as we become more conscious and more connected, something new will emerge.
A new way of being, a new way of relating to each other, a new world.
A world where we recognize our interconnectedness, our inherent divinity.
A world where we treat each other with compassion, with understanding, with love.
A world where we live in harmony with ourselves, with each other, and with the planet. And that all starts with each one of us.
It does. It starts with the choices we make every day, the thoughts we think, the words we speak, the actions we take.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want you to ask yourself, what future are you choosing to create?
Yeah.
What world do you want to live in? Because you have the power to make it happen.
You do. You are a powerful creator. Don't ever forget that.